Hey everybody, Film Photography Podcast, episode 340, April 1st, 2025. Before we begin, if anyone is in the Bowling Green, Ohio area this weekend, Saturday, April 5th, 2 p.m. at the Bowling Green City Park, myself and the rest of the FPP gang with Trev Lee from thedarkroom.com. We're doing a photo walk, so if you're in the area, come on down. Bring your favorite film camera. We'll have a lot of fun, chit-chat, hang out. Coming right up on today's show is special guest Trev Lee from thedarkroom.com. Stay tuned. Let's get this show started.
What show?
Hey folks, Michael Rouse here. This is the Film Photography Podcast. Today I'm in the room with special guest Trev Lee from thedarkroom.com.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Matt Mirage.
Hey, everybody.
Owen McCaffrey.
Moin.
Yes! We are all shooting film! Because when we do our meetups, seriously, people are so excited.
A lot of good energy.
But Trev is here, and I'm always thrilled to talk to Trev because, there's a lot of insight and, you're on the ground as far as, from a pro lab developing film, and there's always a lot of exciting things going on. Is there?
Yeah. 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 Sometimes we don't want it to be exciting. We just want it to be...
So what's new and exciting, Trev? You could hit any topic you want. You could talk about film stock, thedarkroom.com, the photo developing. I'm sure there's always customer service is a great topic. Yeah. Some topics, folks, we are saving for when Leslie Lazenby is here. Like, for example, the topic which we could talk about every show, and it'll be very helpful to people listening, which is problems, day-to-day problems. Mm-hmm. And as a film shooter who, has been shooting my entire life, which Owen...
I'm not saying anything. Okay. I didn't say anything.
Owen's with the how long have you been shooting? Like 80 years?
So when Tri-X first came out and you were a little kid,
right?
How excited were you?
Yeah.
But there's always problems, and the thing is, I don't know if people understand. I have problems.
Oh, we know you have problems, Mike.
Whether I'm shooting motion picture or still, we're constantly running into problems. But I troubleshoot the problems, and I always trace the problem back to me. And I think a lot of new film shooters, they want to put, it's the blame game. And I understand. Look, I understand because everyone's passionate. They're spending a lot of money. You got to trace back where, there's a lot of steps too. Where did the problem happen? But the shooter traditionally doesn't want to take the blame. So they'll blame the lab. And this is just generally speaking for fun kind of folks. They'll blame the lab. The lab blames the source of the film. Where'd you get that film?
Or the stock, yeah.
Yeah, it's the stock. Mm-hmm. In that whole lineup, there's never a blame from the shooter.
There's no admission. Yeah.
No admission. Yeah. So both myself and Leslie, we kind of troubleshoot these things, and Matt sometimes, and sometimes Owen. I'm like, send a shot of your negatives. I want to see your negatives. Yeah, I want to see your scans, and I get it, and I see all these massive light leaks. So this is ongoing in the professional world in a lab too.
Oh yeah, totally. I help out with customer service. We see all types of questions, problems, and I think a lot of it's just a lack of understanding, which most people don't know, of how what's happening in a lab. They just don't understand what our process is, and sometimes it'll be we think you might have messed up in development, and if we messed that up in development, we messed up a lot of other ones in development because we develop dip and dump, and we're just...
Can you explain for folks who don't know what dip and dunk is, right? Because it's a lot of film.
And we're talking about developing a film.
Developing, yeah. So dip and dunk developing is on a larger scale, at least the way we're doing it, where the film is loaded in a darkroom and it's lowered into various tanks throughout the development process, going up and down, doesn't touch anything, and is, for us, very efficient, and we're running it pretty much every day.
Is when the film is dipped into the chemistry and sits there, is the chemistry agitating? Mm-hmm. Is it moving so that it's basically doing an agitation?
Yeah, it is.
That's pretty cool.
And we at the darkroom actually have now 3 separate darkrooms for each process. So each like our E6, our black and white, our C41, dip and dunks are all in their own separate dark rooms, which when you were originally out at the lab was not the case. All three were in the same dark room, which wasn't always as
I remember when it was like C41 and E6, those were like different runs for it. And it was like
so
shut
you had
down
to
one.
wait,
So does color negative, which is your gold and your average color film. Do you guys still have machines where you just feed the film in the machine and it does everything inside a machine?
We have two V100s. Those are running like disposable cameras.
Okay.
And stuff that's not pushed. But because like the dip and dunk machines for us are so much more reliable in the sense of like if something goes wrong with them, they're easier to repair. A lot of parts, there's not a lot of parts, but you can machine stuff with like those, like the V100s. They're just a bunch of like they're harder to work on and get parts and find people to fix them and stuff like that. So the dip and dunks are more reliable, and it's something that we're always working towards using more.
Right.
And utilizing but yeah, so when it comes to problems, it's rare. Like we don't have a lot of development issues. So like when someone sends us and if we do, we know it. Like we're aware of it. Usually if we have the issue, we would contact the customer before they would contact us. So like if someone's like, hey, my film's underexposed, like a lot of times the first thing I ask is like, okay, tell me the film, tell me the camera, and explain to me how you rated the ISO and how you metered. And then I break it down for them, make sure they get the information, like give me that information, then I respond. Because if it's a disposable camera, that pretty much answers it right there. The odds are is they didn't use the flash, they shot in too low of light. If, a lot of times I know the camera they're using and I can understand, or I look at their photos and it's a photo of like a snowy scene. I'm like, well, your meter was confused. It metered off of bright reflective white, made it middle gray, underexposed that as well as everything else. So it's like it's kind of like getting to know, like once I know all those factors, I can answer those questions. And it's typically the main issue is just underexposure. It's like I've always quoted you, Matt. You always say, "When in doubt, blow it out." Like the more light, the better, and that's something that I'm always preaching and explaining to people. More light, the better.
It's a good life advice too.
Yeah, Mike. There's, I think there might even be another fundamental thing that applies to this conversation really well, and another reason that we here at FPP and over at the Darkroom, you guys know almost instantly when it's a photographer-based problem versus a process or darkroom-based problem, and that is the nature of these processes. So when you run C41 film or E6 film, those are designed with so many different color dyes and dye couplers that the process is standardized. All of those process films go through at the same time and temperature.
Yep.
That standardizes for anything else. So all those other variables are essentially on the photographer. That's how a lot of these places we know real quick, because it all gets the same time and temp, unless you have specifically contacted your lab and said, hey, do you offer push or pull, and have exposed it as such and know that the process is going to then compensate. So those are some other things that can really trip somebody up at first.
Something that I've recently started doing in the past year is on our Instagram, people will, they'll get their scans back, they'll be really excited, and they'll share them and be like, great job, Darkroom, like tag us, which I always appreciate and often share those type stories. But I have been thanking them right back, because like if we give them a good scan, that means that they gave us a good exposure.
The good materials to work with, yeah.
And the better the exposure, the more someone thinks about it, works towards getting a better exposure, the better results we can give them. I mean, because we don't have to literally, like you're saying, it's standardized.
Yeah.
Like we develop it, and we scan it, and like the better the exposure is, the less we have to think about on the scanning. Like it's just bulletproof. You can't mess up the scan if you give us a good exposure.
Yeah. And in terms of ease of getting into a process, there's really nothing like working with a good C41 stock like your modern Kodaks or your FPP Color 125, or just like a really good color stock.
You know, for instance, sometimes people will be like, my film looks greenish. We're like, well, that's probably because it's underexposed. Like a lot of times we're explaining where it's like it's the scanner's trying to pull detail out of these underexposed areas, will create some interesting like colors while it does that. But then it's also sometimes we'll have people be like, I want my film to look like that. And I'm like, well, you're shooting slide film. It's not going to look like Portra. Or you're shooting, like there's certain films.
Or that's an emulator on Photoshop.
Yeah. And that's a lot of times I'll have to ask, like, what are you shooting? What are your goals and how you want it to look? You know, there's certain films that will help you get to that point, and some will not.
And I think all of this ties into a topic I wrote down that I didn't like do research for, but like I'm always thinking about is film photography right for you? And there are folks, at least on the movie film side, that people write in and, you know, they describe the issues that they're having or the complaints that they have. And it's like, I don't know if movie film, right? Film is for you. Some people expect the process to be like instant. Send your film away and it's going to come right back and it's going to look perfect.
And movie film's so much more involved.
Yeah,
with
and
that,
it is more involved.
And more of a commitment financially as well, probably.
But, you know, I do think that, like, I think especially with much younger generations as we get into Gen Z shooting and soon Gen Alpha. I mean, your daughter's in Gen Alpha. She's shooting. You know, where they might have this expectation that because we live in an Amazon age, right? Like I can buy something on Amazon. It's on my doorstep in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I think certain folks expect film photography to work that way, and it's like that's what you're looking for. Film photography might not be for you, or you just need to check yourself and your expectations.
Or it might be. I think the expectation's the biggest part, because it's like, what are you expecting to get out of it? I think film photography, if someone's shooting it and wants to do it, it's probably right for them, but they're just not maybe doing it in the right way. They're, like you said, their expectation's different. I mean, like you met my dad. He shoots with a Canon Rebel with like a 35 millimeter. He's not a film guy. He just enjoys it, like the process of it. Like it's probably not right for him in the sense of like the end result. He could get results that tell a story with the iPhone, but I think that there's an outside element with film that's like, maybe it's good for him because he's not living on his phone.
Right.
And it's like a separation from that.
But he's also of an age that he grew up with film.
He did.
He understands that, like, you drop, back in the day, you drop a film off at the lab. It comes back comes back in a couple of days. I think there's some folks who have because we're all kind of talking about the whole professional lab process. Some folks don't know like what happens behind the scenes. They just assume, I'm giving you my film, you're going to go in the back room and put it in your
it's fine, I'll wait while you're...
Right, exactly.
We could talk through that too if and want a brief rundown for people.
What that's like?
What it looks like coming into our lab, because ours is definitely one of the larger operations in the States, I would assume.
Biggest one I've been to.
Yeah, so it is an undertaking. I mean, like, you guys have been there. It's like, I don't know if any of you watch Seinfeld, where Newman talks about like
the mail
coming in. He's like, it never stops, it never ends.
And he controls information.
It's kind of like that. Like, it's
you were saying just yesterday how many pieces you get in usually on a Monday over the weekend.
We don't talk about this too much, but it can range from, like, especially a 3-day weekend. It could range from 500 to 700. We've had more. It's not that it's always that, but it just depends. That's mailing in.
And so tell us, like, what happens. I put my film in your prepaid mailer. I drop it off at the post office. What happens next?
So it will arrive at our P.O. box, the post office, which is literally half a mile from the lab. We pick up usually twice a day. It's it's literally there's like a pallet with like just a bunch of stacks of mail, and then that is brought back. It's sorted through. If it's single-use cameras, which we can just feel through the packaging, that gets separated, and then we go through all the film. It gets logged in. That's where our people are going through and looking at the film, looking at the orders, logging it in. There's a lot of investigations that happen with that because sometimes people forget their order form in the mail. So then we have to take they won't put it with their film. They forgot. So we have to take the information on the return shipping and do some research to find out the
Open
online
up the
order.
white pages.
Believe it or not, sometimes on occasion we get rolls that come with no return shipping, no order form, nothing. That's
What
a
happens?
mystery
Just
roll.
sits in a basket until somebody claims it?
That's
or?
a mystery roll for a while until they explain the roll, and then we develop it, and then we ask like, "What's on your roll?" and make
my
sure
gosh.
it's theirs.
Crazy.
But
that's a full-time job. You have somebody doing that full-time?
Yeah,
Basically,
well, with
yeah.
multiple, yeah.
Yeah.
So then that gets logged in, divvied out according to process, and a lot of labeling goes on to if it's a standard, enhanced, super scan, if there's prints, if there's black and white prints, all of that goes into development, dip and dunk, or the machine. And then once that's done, it's scanning, and we will scan. But the cool thing is that we'll upload it to your own personal account where I can still look at all of my scans from 2015 on my phone, which is pretty cool. So we'll archive them, but then we ship it out. And but there's so much in between that goes on of like keeping track of that, because like you lose a roll, we have to be on the ball with it, because like if we lose a roll or it gets mislabeled, it's not that it's lost forever, but it would be a pain.
But it goes back to your earlier point, like when folks are like, "Oh, the lab screwed up my film," there would be 9 other rolls that would be screwed up, and you, the darkroom, would be reaching out because you would know right away from that batch, right?
Oh yeah, we would be sick to our stomachs. Yeah, like we never want to make that call, and it's very rare that something ever happens, but it's
Going back to what you mentioned about you have the dip and dunk processor there, for the folks at home trying to visualize this,
and Matt can explain this better. Matt knows this side so much better than I do.
Well, it's just the scale of it, folks, is so different from what you might imagine, because you may have seen like a mini lab, like a Noritsu or something, where it kind of just looks like an old like copy fax machine that someone's kicking at the office. It is not that.
This is mostly for like 1 hour photo.
That's 1 hour photo. And those are the machines that are notorious for screwing up film, because those rollers catch a piece of lint, and now every roll that goes through is going to have a little micro scratch right along the same area. A dip and dunk machine is a big old, this is like industrial military grade equipment that will not go down. It is a tank, and it's in a dark room. Trev says it's a dark room like it's a little closet. No, it's like a small hotel room with a queen bed.
Dorm room.
Like a presidential suite?
No. No mini bar, no little chair in the corner, but each of these little dark rooms completely black, and this giant dip and dunk processor. For something like that to go down, it is very, very obvious, because they have someone full-time that is watching these machines. They have monitoring for temperature, electrical, everything's incredibly, incredibly controlled. And so at that scale, you have to account for those things. And I remember the first time we visited the dark room in 2015, and Phil gave us the tour, and he said something that made so much sense to me, is when you're running an operation of that scale, and at the time I think it was 2 shifts, now you're 3 shifts a day.
When you guys were there, we probably had 16 employees.
It was pretty easy to walk around.
Significantly more than that now, and we're 3 times the size in the lab. But
Phil mentioned that like when you have something of that scale, you have to minimize the number of times someone is touching or interacting with the film. The more times you can keep someone's hands off of the film, the less chance there is for error. And that's what happens. We all make mistakes, and trying to minimize that along the way. So every step where it has to go through another person or another process is that chance that something can happen. So at a scale like that, as long as it's controlled, it can actually be safer than taking it to the small mom and pop, where it's one person, one machine, and if something goes wrong, everything comes grinding to a halt.
It is important, I think, to investigate your labs.
Talk to them. Ask to look around.
And there are folks out there who present themselves as a lab, and you think it's like a big professional operation with some guy in his basement, which there's nothing wrong with that, but
Know what you're getting.
The
Yeah.
quality control is completely different.
Yeah.
The prices are going to be different, and so you need to know.
And sometimes it's not that much more when you know you're going to be getting, a good product at the
Right.
end of the day.
Yeah,
100%.
I think the thing with like regular bigger labs is the consistency because we can't
afford to.
We can't
Yeah.
afford to slow
Right.
down because we could bury ourselves.
And
Yeah.
it surprises me people who, because I get people all the time are like, oh, I'm going to start my own lab, or if I see people on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I don't think people understand the liability that you have. Like when you start a business,
They don't
Mike-
treat it like a business. That's the
Right,
problem.
and
Yeah.
they don't treat it like a business. And as Mike knows, having participated in many businesses, like you can't just like start a business and expect that no problems are going to happen. Problems are going to happen, and if you don't have the right insurance, if you don't have the right, processes behind you,
Even the simple disclaimers attached to the service you're offering.
Yep.
Yeah, when it comes to like the responsibility and like what we're doing, it's like we can't hide from anything. Like we have to work through everything. We have to make sure we're doing everything right because like, you make the social media world, like you make a mistake, it's everywhere.
It's crazy now.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, there's no.
You have to be on
forgiveness.
top of it. Like there's something that's like small. I want to address it before it becomes even if
A
it's-
Reddit post.
Yeah, and the vast majority of the time they're a misunderstanding. Like we talked about, we had a Reddit post that was a complete misunderstanding, and it exploded.
Right.
And so it's like, luckily on social media we can catch a lot of that and educate and use it as. I mean, most of our social media posts and stuff, most of them are fed by problems we want to avoid in the lab.
There are common things you see. and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of like if someone wants to shoot film that they need to like have a license, to take a basic photography class?
Gotta have a
No.
permit.
We'd be done. We wouldn't be having this podcast.
That's right.
Be nobody. I don't even think I would
Flipping burgers.
I wouldn't even reapply.
Oh, there you go.
I'd be like my grandpa. I'd be like, can you just let this one slide?
We'd be outlaws.
Yeah. So how do you keep? So talking to Trev Lee, who is telling us that he's handling a lot of customer service outside of the fact that a lab like the darkroom.com has customer service department. How do you keep from taking it personal or like getting hurt
Or do
feelings?
You're a very angry person, Trev.
Yeah.
No, social media, that's the hardest part. I think I'm pretty good at it because I've been doing it for a while, where like it's you just can't take it personal. Eventually you get so used to being flooded with like, because it's either one or the other. There's very rarely in between response. Like either someone loves it or like you did everything wrong. I feel like we do pretty well because I'm not telling people. Like when Phil and Keith, the owners of the Darkroom, had me start doing social media, I was learning along with everyone. So we built like a platform, a foundation of like, this guy who's posting isn't like talking like he knows everything. Like he's right there. He's one of us. So like when I first started, like everything that I was posting about, I learned like a week prior or something. Like it was like, this is my experience with this film. This is, since we have a lot of film enthusiasts, that was, I think, a really important thing when building our social media. And I think that's kind of continued through. Obviously, there's certain things that are a little more polarizing topics, like when we talk about, and sometimes it's fun to have that polarizing topic. It gets people going, but it's like doing it in a right way. But yeah, you can't take it personally because there's still people out there.
Yeah. With film photography project, when our hand rolled films.
Oh yeah, we get that stuff. Yeah. I mean, we get the comments on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying from my perspective, if it's a film that I am personally handling the actual film stock and getting the film to Leslie Lazenby, and she's doing the rolling, and then we're doing the pack. Like if everything's happening in house, if so few people have touched that film, and we're all like have 25 plus years experience with the film, it's difficult not to feel attacked when someone's trying to say to us like there's a problem with the film stock, especially
This obvious camera issue is the film stock. Yeah.
yeah. So it's
I have feature
difficult.
numbers. I developed my film, but you must have screwed it up.
because like my entire life has been handling film,
Yeah,
and
I
there's
can see
like
that.
zero. Literally, I mean, it makes us sound like we're, being difficult when we say there's 0% chance of there being a problem with this film, because I've seen every step of it. So I think that probably the darkroom is doing a better job with customer service than I. Well, I have these folks help. Like I'll send Matt an email.
Yeah, there's
or-
right people for it.
You know,
And not everyone's cut out for it too. Yeah.
I notice anymore, Mike, the biggest gap. So there's a lot of people that are they'll get into film and they generally temper their expectations. They're pretty good about it. But the ones that I've been getting lately for FPP seem to be some of the bigger offenders. The school programs that have it, but then the teacher like throws them a project, but then like, okay, now go do this thing, but there's so many steps between like what they just described, and they don't have that foundational time. So it's like the student just has to do this thing now. So they'll come looking for information or like, hey, is this gonna do my project? And like, whoa, maybe.
Meanwhile, that student has a film professor, but they're coming to us to ask questions.
Yes.
When-
So we are bridging that gap. Yeah. It's very interesting. So I was talking to Trev about this. This is like tangentially related. So I'll still get the questions from like the LFF, the YouTube questions. A lot of them are very, very positive. There's so many folks that have overwhelmingly positive things, but on the question side of it, if it's not a process related thing, a lot of people want to send a question with like the highest urgency because they want to feel good about the choice they're about to make. Like buying a camera,
definitely
buying a film
yeah.
stock.
Mhm.
They just need someone that give them that go ahead.
Right.
So what I usually do now is I'll wait on those because inevitably within 1 or 2 days,
So large format, you
they've-
get a lot of like, I'm thinking of buying this, and this.
or
and they're-
or tell me which one to buy, and then within 48 hours, oh hey, I bought this thing.
Yeah, we were joking around about it where when you say that, they're probably literally on eBay about
to
hit
click
the
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
hovering over buy
Yeah.
it now, but let me just send this question out real quick.
Because I think you and Mike and I were talking about this once. I do wonder how many questions we get into the FPP are more for confirmation. Like they already know
I think
the
that's what it
answer,
is, yeah.
They're
I
just
think that, yeah.
confirming
There's a
the
lot of that.
knowledge.
yeah, but we do it ourselves. Like Matt will text me, should I buy this? And it's like a motion picture camera, Ariflex.
The answer is always yes.
Yeah,
no, I always say, how much? And then he texts me back how much, which is very low. I'm like, buy it. Because you can't lose.
Right.
Yeah, you'll tell me, okay, semi-roll film, we'll test it, and then worst case, you can flip it. That's always the
Right,
thing.
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is. So, folks, we're not harping on any one particular person here. We
Oh, no.
all
Absolutely not.
do this. That is why we're still here, because this is an ecosystem, and we are part of this ecosystem.
And a community.
Yeah, where we're helping people get into it.
Yeah.
We're fueling their addiction with films and cameras
But
and
I think
giveaways.
the theme is, and I mean, I worked at McDonald's when I was in high school. Worked at
I'm sorry.
Sears, I know. But like I worked retail. You worked retail. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we all
Yes, worked retail.
Like,
We did our time.
right. Like, but you also know, like, I do think you can tell a person, in my opinion,
Yeah.
comes to customer service and has never worked retail in their life, and then a person who has worked retail.
Night and
It's
day.
like, just be nice. Like nobody's out here trying to like screw you over. Like we all want to make you happy. If we made a mistake, we'll admit it, and if we don't, we'll be honest with you. But like, there's no reason to get like angry.
So
Yeah.
instead of charging, what we should do, Mike, we'll get you one of those little iPad minis on the wrist thing. And so when somebody has a question, you'd be like, oh, hey, this is going to ask you a question real quick.
Flip it over.
Flip the screen towards them. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. But a lot of customer service issues with film related, I'm going to save for another show, a motion picture show.
What show?
Because, I mean, that topic is Super 8, which is it's
Yes.
so intense
But there's a lot of it.
that I would call Matt or Owen and be like, I think we just
Well-
need to stop stocking Super 8 because it's so
Yeah.
troublesome.
But it's also so popular. It's like, it's the...
I hate to say, I've said it before. People don't want to hear it. And I'll tell Trev, because he doesn't shoot motion picture, Super 8 is the worst motion picture format. It's
That's a pretty
it's a
stark
cartridge.
No, it's not even close. It is the worst.
Really?
It's a
I don't know if
cartridge
it's the
that has
worst.
film go. It's like an 8-track cartridge that has film going through it that just snaps
Trev,
in
you know
your
what an
camera.
8-track
Yeah.
Okay.
Snaps in your camera. There's no pressure plate holding the film in.
Just kind of, it's
The
hanging out
only
there.
thing that's pushing the film through your camera is a little gear
There is a pressure plate in the cartridge.
Yes.
On some of the good cameras, there's like an additional something pushing on it, but usually it's cheap plastic.
And this is not me. This is Sam Sherman talking. He's like, no. 888.
Yeah.
Get this camera. It has a pressure plate. It's a real
I
camera.
mean, look, I agree with you mostly, but like the reason I shoot photography is because of Super 8. Like that's how I started. So like I don't. But
You're right. It's the most accessible. And what's
absolutely
if
is.
Trev was going to shoot motion picture film
Hand him
tomorrow,
a Super
8.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's also the problem because it's the most ubiquitous. You mentioned motion picture. That's what people imagine outside the giant Mickey Mouse ears
35,
Hollywood
yeah.
camera.
Well,
Yeah.
this ties into still photography in the sense of so many point and shoot cameras, Trev. So many point and shoot cameras that are not functioning right. So you must also at thedarkroom.com get a lot of questions, almost asking how is my
How could this happen? Yeah.
Yeah.
how does this
I pulled
happen?
my film out. There's no pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also loading your film into a camera and you're not shooting anything, not
Yeah.
catching.
I mean, a lot of times I can figure that out by seeing the scans or the negative, for sure, the negatives. But the nice thing is with point and shoots or anything that's modern day electronic, it's like they're either working or they're not. They're actually easier to troubleshoot electronic cameras are than mechanical.
Yeah,
because
they'll just be dead.
Because a mechanical, will limp through something, but if anything goes on with electronic camera, they're just shot. Like they'll stop working. So like a Canon Rebel, if something's wrong with the
won't go.
shutter, it just won't go. But you could have a Canon 81 that could have a lagging shutter. It could Canon 81's electronic as well, but a mechanical camera.
And Nikon FM. Yeah.
Nikon FM. There's a lot of things actually could go wrong with it in the sense of and it will keep going.
Yeah. Or
'Cause
people
they're
will
tough
people will
cameras.
grind through a bad advance or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The point shoots aren't as hard. A lot of times it's just like something's wrong with their flash or the flash isn't going.
I've seen people mess up on point and shoots, not realizing that their point and shoot can't handle the film speed because there's some are limited.
Wasn't designed for that
Right.
speed. Yeah.
True.
Or some who you can only set film speed using your DX code, and they might be shooting a homeworld
Non-DX.
that doesn't have a DX,
Yeah.
and then camera defaults to whatever it defaults to. But.
Yeah, I would say the thing that we see the most, and it's kind of funny with point and shoots like questions, is the annoying panoramic.
Oh,
Oh, it
Locations.
just puts the
People are
mask.
like, I want to get this panoramic. I'm like, never use the panoramic setting because you just shoot the 35 and then crop it yourself. It's the
Right.
same.
It's like
You're
taking a
just
4x3 image and putting letterbox, right? That's
Yep.
all it's doing.
Yeah, or people will pay for the additional panoramic scanning for it. Which
Not realizing it's
not
really,
realizing
yeah.
then, and we're like, you might as well get the normal 35 and crop it yourself. You'd save
Here we
money.
go. Well,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
It's okay, folks, because I too was once young, and I saved all my allowance money for a couple months so I could buy the widescreen release of Star Wars on VHS, which I didn't realize was actually the strictly worst experience you could get.
You're talking about the gold.
The gold versus the
VHS.
silver. No, but I got the silver
You
ones,
got
which
the full screen.
the widescreen ones. So it actually put the letterbox bars
Oh,
on
okay.
my
Oh,
4x3
okay.
TV,
Yep.
and it's terrible. So your image, is like
Not to mention
4
that,
inches
like,
tall.
That's a whole nother.
It was a
that's
bad
whole nother
release,
topic,
but no.
yeah.
So I've done that too. It happens. The last time Kodak, I was around the same age too. The last time Kodak made the special one-time use cameras, I remember buying one at Niagara Falls, and those ones were actual panoramic
Yes,
because you had less shots per roll. So unless it's a specialty
Yep.
panoramic camera, if it has the mode, it's not a panoramic
Right.
camera.
And that's what I was just gonna ask. What can you guys name some panoramic point and shoots? Are there?
There's a bunch. I mean, well,
real or faux?
Faux.
Real.
Oh, real.
Okay, I thought you were gonna
Or
say
are there
the,
such?
the faux ones because yours has a faux one.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
the Olympus.
Olympus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't think there's hardly any.
No, because there's the old one-time use ones that Kodak had, and then there's like,
Okay,
X-Pans.
But that was a huge fad in like the 90s with
was.
like your
Especially
CVS lab.
XPS.
Do you think it was APS because APS had those multi-modes?
APS, that's what I was trying to
Like there's a little
XPS.
button here, and I could just flip this
and
up.
it just throws the mask
It
down.
just throws the mask on,
Yeah.
and your local CVS back in the 90s or early 2000s,
Revco.
they were pushing the long prints, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Did that really catch on?
Nah.
I'll tell you what. When I was a kid in the '90s, like I remember class pictures. My teacher.
Oh
would take-
yes.
And you would come home with but that's all it was. It was just a cropped 35 millimeter photo on a,
This 4x9 or whatever it was. Yeah.
Questions? You got questions, folks? Podcast at filmphotographyproject.com. That's right. I don't know. Do we cover it, Trev?
I mean, I think so.
This is not an ad
All
for.
right, I have a
No.
question, Trev, because we chatted about this at the meetup a little bit. It's kind of related to point and shoots. How has the reception been between photographers, but then versus the lab with the Pentax 17?
Oh, the half frame.
Half frame. How is half frame? Because that's been a big push the last couple of years. I think that's the new panoramic push.
So we I mean, at the darkroom, we got to work with Pentax. Like,
Okay.
We not in like the development of the camera, but we were one of the first testers, and then we started seeing the trend of more half frames, which the vast majority of them are not good quality, like glass lenses, fixed exposure.
Hey, Mercury 2, best camera ever made.
But so when we knew that this camera, when the 17 was coming out, we needed to be ready. So like we started working on like pricing to be fairer, like the best that it could be, but still be good for us.
Yeah, because it's literally twice the scanning, twice the printing.
Yeah. And so like streamlining that, and
how many people, with half frames get prints? Is it a lot?
well,
And are you actually cropping like single prints for each frame, or are you?
well, we'll
like when I was a
definitely
kid,
print
when
them
I shot
individually.
half frame. Oh, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember I would take it to.
A lot of labs would do two on the same one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember my lab, like the one time I had a Mercury 2, I took the cartridge in, or the roll in, and I came back a couple days later, and he's like, don't ever give me this film again. He
Yeah.
did not want to do half frame.
What? Your photo finisher
Yeah, this
told
is
you
like-
not to shoot?
Yes, this would have been like 2006.
He yelled at you.
Yeah, he was like, we will never do this again. I was like, okay.
It's not as common to get prints for them. We have a different price for it because it's more. But we also do offer the 2-up or just a single option when you're ordering. Actually, a side thing, the thing that we see prints with most is actually disposable cameras. Which is
That
kind
makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm sorry there wasn't in the Seinfeld show a grouchy photo finisher.
Yeah.
There's no photo finishers in the Seinfeld.
Which is because, at least all the photo finishers I used to go to when I was a kid, they were all.
Yeah.
All of the
That
years
was
we've
the
done
attitude.
FVP,
Yeah.
Fidelli especially, was always the grouchy photo finisher.
Yeah.
Always annoyed that you were even walking in the door.
Yes.
Oh.
That was my experience just getting into film. So probably it wasn't until probably about 2012 that anytime you walk into a camera shop and you ask about, they're like, beat it, kid.
Right.
They're like, we don't care. Where were you 10 years ago?
Right.
Yeah. Like that was always
We
the
don't want your
attitude.
money.
Yeah. Buy this new digital
Fidelli
camera.
would get in arguments with photo finishers in Montclair when Kodachrome was still around.
Yeah.
That like doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So.
And what was around? It was like Photo Hut? You guys have Photo Hut out there?
Oh
in
no,
Jersey?
no! In Montclair, New Jersey was like a corner photo shop.
Corner store. Okay. Yeah.
And all the reason it was there because students
Yeah.
went there to buy their Tri-X. That's it. So they didn't want to talk about anything else.
Right.
The half frame to finish that, we do see a lot.
Okay. I was
But-
wondering because it seems like that has been a big push.
The nice thing though is, at least with the 17, it's a good lens with good coatings, sharp. Like we get good resolution out of it. I printed it as a 12x18.
It's pretty
And
big.
it printed really well, so well that when we saw Pentax, we showed them, and then they just brought it along to show
To show
off.
people?
Yeah,
That's cool.
What film? What stock was it? Do you remember?
It was that I printed was Gold 200,
Nice.
but I also printed 12x18 of HP5 push to stop, shot at 800
Okay.
on like an overcast day when I was in New York.
But that's also because Trev's a pro.
Yeah.
Trev, who's the brain trust that decided that half frame was going to be like the thing?
That's
I
what
wanna
I'm
know-
always wondering.
I want to
Yeah.
know who. I mean, folks
Okay.
listening too. Like, who was
Why?
happy about this?
Well, I don't know if it's that. Are you talking about with Pentax?
It just seems
Anybody,
like it
'cause-
just seems like the industry agreed on
'cause,
it at
yes,
some
I was
point.
shocked. I mean, I was shocked when I found out it was half frame.
It's like,
I
oh,
couldn't
you'll get
believe it.
72 images out of your roll. Who wants that?
a lot.
I still
mean,
have
barely
nightmares
like
about that.
A lot of
36.
people do. I mean, it's not.
Who are
my-
these people?
It's not my first choice either, but I I think when we've got to meet TKO. He's the designer of the 17.
How much is that camera, by the way? Retail?
500.
Like $499.
That's not bad.
I mean,
But
it's
the quality is good. It is a good feeling camera.
Yeah, I haven't
'Cause
actually
there's a
touched
few folks last night that had it.
one.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
I should have brought mine.
It was nice.
So I think when they were thinking of a younger generation, we're definitely thinking of a younger generation. One, half frame is vertical, so it's very iPhone oriented, which I actually have grown to like
TikToks.
because I can wear a hat, like a baseball cap, and shoot vertical without
turning
pushing
your
up my
camera.
head.
Mhm,
Yeah. And pushing up my bill or whatever. It sounds dumb, but it's like sometimes I'll have my other camera like, oh, that's inconvenient. But I think they're thinking that. I think they're thinking cost. I think it most likely is probably easier to do.
Oh, really?
Like
Okay.
in making it at first, and I'm like, I know they've talked about doing something in the future, so we'll see what that ends up being.
Yeah, I was gonna
like.
say, I wonder if they'll decide to release a non-half frame, because I'm sure we're not the only people who are like, what? Why
Yeah,
half
but
frame?
we're also the older folks in this conversation.
Not all of us. Mike's not old.
It's true.
The thing about that camera, the one thing I'll say about it is it's better than I thought it was going to be. I like it better than I thought I would, and it's because it checks a box that I don't have.
Sure.
So I think a lot of times when it comes to film photography or creative endeavors in general, you get in kind of a groove and you like to change things up, grab a different camera. Like that Rolly 35 AF is out. It's a cool looking camera, but it's not as appealing to me because I already have cameras like it.
Right.
Okay.
Where I don't have anything, for me personally, I don't have anything like the Pentax 17. So it's different. It's a change of pace for me.
Yeah, almost makes it worth the money.
And with the 72 frames, I find that I'm a much more prolific shooter with it because I have more to work with. It's zone focus, which isn't as bad as a lot of people think once you get into,
That was one thing I was surprised by. Folks were like, I can't believe it's zone focus. And I'm like, somebody grew up shooting mostly zone focus cameras. And,
Yeah,
shooting
there's just a certain
brownies and stuff.
generation where that's all you got at a
Right.
certain price point.
Right.
And zone focus is what? The flower, the one person, the two persons, the mountain?
Yeah, and they also put on the bottom simultaneously when you select it, you'll see it in meters and
And
feet.
distance.
Oh,
as
that's
well,
nice.
Oh,
which
that's
is
cool.
Nice. So you'll see that through the viewfinder and at the top, but then when you go like this and look at it, it's, in my opinion, it is outside of maybe the Olympus XA, the best zone focus camera I've shot with, and function because
You heard it here first, folks.
because you can count the clicks. Like I've shot with the original Rolly, which is zone focus, but it's clickless. So, and it hits infinity around 20 to 30 feet, where this one, you can count your clicks. So like when I'm outside, I'll put it on infinity. And then if something's within 10 feet,
Two clicks up.
click
Yeah.
back.
it's, I know, I don't even have to look. I just know. And realistically, if you're shooting 400 ISO film in it, when you're outside,
You're already in
you
the
can
ballpark,
you
yeah.
can shoot 10 feet all the time unless someone's really close. Like when when I was in New York City with it, I rarely shot infinity because there's a lot of foreground that I wanted. 10 feet, it's probably shooting at f11, f16.
So you've got everything 5 feet onwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so I liked it for street photography. I'm not necessarily a street photographer. I also love it for candids because our point and shoot cameras sometimes will hunt for focus
Yep.
or misfocus. This, like, I'm looking at you, Owen. I know you're like roughly 3.5, 4 feet from me. I just set it, point,
Yep.
shoot, done.
Yep.
I don't have to think about it missing because it is what it is. It's set there.
Right.
So it's that aspect of it. It's really nice.
And I think it's good if you're somebody who's always had an SLR or through the lens camera. I think it's good to practice. Because to me, it never bothered me because I just knew. You grow up and you get a sense of distance because you just know it. I think it's good for people to practice that skill.
It's a good feeling camera. I think you'd be most people are surprised when they shoot with it. But the nice thing about it is you know what you're getting. Like you're not gonna get it and then be disappointed because you already know. In my opinion, like if you don't like it, you don't like it. Like
Yeah.
if you're not in the zone focus, if you're not into half frame, you just won't get it. But
Right.
if you are like, I want that, those are two things I'm fine with, you're not going to be disappointed by
Disappointed,
it, in my opinion.
Yeah, you put it a really interesting way when we were talking about it at first. You're like, this is a camera that's it might make you mad on the front end, but if you're using it, you're not going to have anything bad to say about it.
On the back end, yeah. I've not known too many people. There's been a few that it wasn't for them once they got it, but for a vast majority of people that I know have gotten it, like it. And that's because they had the proper expectations going into it. And I think Pentax did a really good job. Like, they didn't tell us anything when we got it. Like, they're just like, shoot with it. They sent it to people that, like, they sent it to Jason Who's Rainy Days, and he was a little hard on it. Like, but that's fine. Like, it set the
It's not for him.
Yeah,
it's just not for him.
Which
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. So, like, and they're fine with that, too.
Yeah.
And,
You think they'll come out with a 126 camera?
Keep hoping.
Time to wake this show up.
So that's what this episode is about, folks.
126.
Managing expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Managing expectations and everything you need to know is out there on the web. Everything. But at the same time, it's like when you're doing your research, you have to kind of like look at a few different sources because
Absolutely.
Because the internet is of course open to everyone, and some people's opinion versus experience.
Yes.
You can read a lot of.
And there's a lot of
shit talking.
AI generated stuff out there too. So sifting through that versus experience, it is getting harder.
well, and with expectations, I think expectations are, obviously it's good in life in general.
Yep.
It's like that quote of like, it's the root of all evil, or root of all disappointment.
Disappointment, Evil.
No, that's,
I always
But-
tell folks the best thing you can do is you go to a website called abebooks.com and go type in photography book, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying a $2 50-year-old Kodak photography book or some other. That's how I learned how to do photography.
The
Those
rules
books.
haven't changed.
Yes. And like, it'll teach you everything you know, and some of the best sources I have found on concepts on photography, lighting, lenses, the whole developing. The content's 50, 60 years old, but it's still true. It hasn't changed. A lot of it has not changed. And if you're like, I don't know if I'm getting the right information, go find a book, because like that, I almost guarantee you that information is going to be correct.
And that's
that
on-
blog post you're reading by some 15-year-old kid that picked up a camera last week, probably not the best person.
yeah, that's a good point.
Hey,
And
at least he can write blogs.
That's true. Well, we don't know. It could
That's
be
Chat
it could be
AI.
ChatGPT,
Damn.
and that's
So that's on the technical side. I think another thing to look at is your expectation of just enjoying what you're doing, because like I think a lot of people shoot, like, this is something we're going to talk about AI. Like, people are like, will AI hurt film? And I'm like, I don't know if it actually will,
not
because
gonna touch film.
the act of taking photos is what's fun.
It's part of it, yeah.
About taking photos. I used to make fun of people who had fidget spinners. Like, that's the dumbest thing. And then I realized my Nikon FM2 was a fidget spinner.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Got
Like,
so many things on
it
there.
allows me to, like, it's something that like I can be creative in everyday life. Like when I had a kid and I couldn't go out and do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, like, to be creative in everyday moments. So it's like, even if you have an expectation and intention of just enjoying what you're doing and being creative, I think you won't be let down as much with film. But then obviously, if you want the best results
right away.
you work on, refining that, because the better you get your technical skills, the less you think about it, the more creative you'll be. Like, if you're thinking about how to sync your flash and how to get your exposure
You're
right
out
with
of it.
flash, or
You're-
all these different things,
Yeah.
you're not thinking creatively. You're not
Nope.
thinking like how you'd frame and how you'd compose and how you'd get your subject to respond how you'd want. So it's like,
And don't beat yourself up. This stuff takes time. I think that's the other big thing. Wanting those amazing results. And there are some people. It's not fair, folks. There are some folks that just pick up. Like, I will have people send me, "Hey, this was my first shot I took on large format," and it's like, and it's amazing. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This belongs in a museum. What are you doing? That's awesome. Why are you asking me
It was
questions?"
AI generated.
No. I'm usually my BS detector's on high alert a lot of times. But yeah, it just generally, for a lot of us, it takes time. We collectively, at this table right now, we may have darn near 100 years of film photography experience, Well, I know there's
more.
4 of us, and there's what? Because I'm almost at 20 years. Trev's at what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I'm like 16.
Owen, you're at 30 plus years.
Now I'm at 40 plus years.
Yeah, so we're at 100 years of film photography
40
experience.
Yes.
You sure?
Oh,
When's the first time you picked up a camera?
When I was like 12.
And we're
126
wow.
Really? That's the first time. 12 years old.
in the
See, damn it.
1970s.
We kept talking, and now they're talking about 126. This is just what
Any
happens.
opportunity. Any
Ah,
opportunity.
but it takes time, folks.
Does,
There are still times
I'm still learning.
we're
I'm
still
still
trying
learning.
to bridge
Oh,
that
I'm
gap
still
between
learning.
between what we want to
Yes.
to get and what we make. Yeah.
You know, something with that too is something I was talking with, like I think on being like we all do this. We're seen on social media or YouTube or whatever, and think that we have like an idea all the time of what's going to come out. And I was like, I can kind of sometimes with certain color film, I have a good idea. Like if I'm gonna nail the exposure, I have a good idea what it's going to look like. Black and white, though, on the other side, it's like sometimes it catches you off guard. It's like
Yeah.
it's like
Pleasant
you're like,
surprise.
I didn't think because you don't see in black and white,
Right.
like, and you don't think that
Some
way
people
as
do.
much. Yeah, some people. Yeah, a lot of dogs too.
But that's the whole fun of it, right?
That's,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think
If you want to know what you're getting, shoot a digital.
There's
shoot an
so many
iPhone.
tools
You're
for
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's always a unexpected element. I think that is a fun aspect. Even
Yeah.
though I feel like Matt, you are one of the more like on like the metering side, and since you're shooting large format often, you're one of the more honed photographers I know in the sense
Oh,
of
thanks.
like how you think
He
through
didn't say
stuff.
you were good. He just said you were honed. No.
I know. That's fine.
But you have to think through
Yeah, a
it.
hone blade can still mess up that chop. Yeah.
But
Oh, but yeah, and there's still always things to work on. So for me, yeah, the tech stuff can come easier, but God, the creative stuff, that takes forever. But now I'm
yeah, you still got a while.
yeah, I still have to. I do have a way to go. And then I
Channeling
made life.
my inner Owen.
Then I made it life harder and got this 16 mil camera. But now I'm
That's
making
right.
stuff again, and it's yeah. I'm trying to bridge that gap between what I see and what I make. It's a lot of fun. So, folks, you're going to be doing this forever.
Yeah.
There's no end goal. There's no. Do we have patches that people can get for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? I mean, that's
Oh, so we need.
we need a
Dude,
patch.
but we haven't given you any.
Ah, shit.
Oh,
Okay,
That's right.
That's what
We should
yeah.
make patches for the motion picture department at FPP.
Yes.
People send their reels in, and it's like great.
Get a
They
patch.
get a
gold
patch.
star.
That.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it. We're going to wrap this
Hey,
one
if you
up.
made it this far, congratulations.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot 126.
That's right. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah. Trev, I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was fun.
We hope to see you soon. We're going to plan another event soon,
In Cleveland, right?
maybe.
I would love to.
Maybe someplace in Ohio. Since
Has to be
the-
Ohio branch,
has-
right?
yeah, the Ohio branch of Beers and Camera. And folks, if you're wondering, the Beers and Camera, there are a bunch of different branches. There's
Yeah.
California, there's Atlanta, right? There's New York.
They do it overseas too.
Oh, yeah.
There is
Okay.
one. I think there's
Is
a
it Japan?
London one. I don't
there-
think there's a
okay.
Japan one. There might be. I think sometimes they pop up and they might not. Have
Yeah.
Like the
One day there'll be one in Germany.
Yes,
Should
and
be.
you'll start it.
I will.
Do it, yeah.
100%.
I'll go.
Yeah. FPP Germany. Let's do it.
Talk with Juan. Yeah.
Podcast at filmphotographyproject.com. That's where to send your email, old-fashioned email.
And if you think that the FPP screwed up your film, Michael's personal number is area code 646.
That's not true. Hey, we're going to see you soon.
ask you something. What do you do for a living, Newman?
I'm a United States postal worker.
Aren't those the guys that always go crazy and come back with a gun and shoot everybody?
Sometimes.
Why is that?
Because the mail never stops. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. There's never a let-up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more, and you got to get it up. And the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in. And then the barcode reader breaks, and it's Publishers Clearinghouse.
All right. Just take the records. They're in the bedroom. Take them. Take anything you want.
Yeah.
Hanging around for the summer, waiting for light to return.